Well, now I'd like to turn it over to Al Collins of Ultimation. Al, thank you so much for being here this evening. I look forward to your discussion.
Hello.
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 Hey, there I am. I had to unmute myself. So there's a couple of guys on here, Clark and Larry McDonald. We belong to a little group very similar to what you fellows are doing up here in Toronto. And we get together once a month and do a Zoom and kind of share back ideas and try to do some clinics. So I've done a couple on things I've learned in the last few years. I think the news we had today, just for interest's sake, is they've had a province-wide stay-home order. We've lost control of COVID. All small businesses are shut down. We're getting like 3,500 new cases a day. So today they announced that province-wide stay home for 4 weeks. Schools are all closed. So we'll be doing more Zooms. So I showed you a little clinic I did on weathering wood a while back. So I've got another one that I did on rust. And I think rust is probably the most popular color in railroads. And again, I lean heavily on the Army guys, the military modelers, and even the war gamers. I look a lot at their websites. They have some amazing techniques and amazing products. Like I said before, I think the guys in Spain that do all the paints, Vallejo and MIG, and somebody just put down here, rust and oil, exactly. MIG and AK and Vallejo, I really think not only do they live in the same town, I think they live in the same bed because they're all sort of related or divorced from one another. And
you're breaking up awfully bad, Al.
Yeah, we're losing you, Al.
Support network of publications and some great videos. You can take. Well, I don't know what to do about that.
Are you here?
Is that any better if I talk closer to the mic? You there?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're. What had happened is that your. Remember, we're talking about bandwidth. It seems that your bandwidth is very low tonight.
Huh. Well, I don't know.
I don't know either. Things are this. I don't know, but this particular program does not seem to be going smoothly this evening.
Well, I noticed when I first came on, you guys I was losing you a bit too, freeze up. So I don't know if it's just in my neighborhood. Well, I guess I can just keep going and do the best I can. So anyway, I got
we can ask for.
Yeah, I got a little PowerPoint here on some rusting techniques, and there's a method you may have heard of before called the hairspray technique, where you can put a base color underneath and then wash it off. So I'll go through that with some products, again, made by the guys in Spain that seem to sort of corner the market on modeled paints and weathering stuff. So if I can remember how to do this, I'm going to share my screen. And I'm going to put that up like that. Is that up? And I'm going to go share.
No, it looks like we lost you again now.
Come on. Share.
Not sharing either.
Oh, can I suggest you mute your video? And we don't need to, it would be better to mute your video and get good audio on the slides than have the video break up. So just hit stop video and then try to share your slides.
Thanks, Phil.
No worries.
Yeah, we'll try it again.
There we go.
Is that any better?
Much better.
Yes, 100%.
Oh, well, there's a trick. I didn't know that one. So
Neither did I.
there you go. Well, we're all learning something new. So
Just stop so everybody understands. If you have limited bandwidth, the video and the audio compete for the bandwidth. especially when you go to share. Now you've got three things competing for the bandwidth. By taking the video out, you label a bandwidth to get good audio and the sharing. So that's why you do it. It's kind of like
Ah.
tracks. Kind of think about it. If you only got a single track, you've got to decide what goes down the track.
Okay, I just wrote that down. All right, so rusting effects, like I say, rust and oil, most common colors in model railroading. So let's go through these. Um, so this is all through why I don't use hairspray in a moment. It's a little challenging to do this at first. I suggest if you're going to try it, and I'll mention it further on too, go to your blue bin and get some throwaways, get some margarine containers or what. I got some old fishing tackle lure plastic bubbles that I practiced on before you start destroying a model. And I did another video on how to strip paint. That comes in handy too when you make a mess like I have done. So it takes a little bit of practice, but the results on this can be quite nice. And once you've done it a few times, it's a matter of getting the right consistency of the paints and the right thickness of the chipping fluids. But it is rewarding when you're done. This is at the bottom of this page, you can see there's a website. This is again one of those support mechanisms that the Mig Jimenez, Ammo Mig Paints puts out, and he's got some great tutorials, great videos, great articles on how to weather. I kind of use this as a guide. I won't bother reading the whole thing, but you can go and have a look at this, and it's a step-by-step, which I've tried to replicate in this clinic, but it's a step-by-step, and you can see that you get some just outstanding results. It is a very simple process once you get onto it. The first few times you're going to either not get any chipping happening or you're going to get all the paint that you put on falling off. So it's just a matter of trial and error, like I say, and the blue bin is the best way to get around that, or some old tank cars, or even if you're at a swap meet, you get some $2 throwaways. Great for practicing before you go onto a model. And like I say, it's just, you can get some gorgeous results. So we'll go through this. MIG has a whole series of oil-based weathering paints that are all washes. They're not solid colors. They're designed strictly for weathering. They also have a line of water-based acrylic paints. This is a rust set that they have, which is really quite spectacular. As long as you let it dry for a few days before you start, working on the next steps. All the rust tones that are in this are perfect for anything that you want to tackle. So all I did was just take some 2x2 squares of styrene to practice on, and just take different tones. Rust in nature, the lighter rust is the newer rust. So if you just try to follow what happens in nature when you're practicing this, just do some darker, then some medium, then some light, and just random, just whatever you feel like. This is a really neat trick, this sponge effect. It doesn't have to be for rust. It can be for any type of modeling you want to do. And a roll of paper towel is your best friend. So just take some color, and you can see from the right-hand picture that you just dab it on till you get the one that's got the black circle around it, which looks like little bits of rust. And you can add that to the surface. And the bottom line is the most important line there. Do things slowly. It's hard to take it off, but it's easy to add a little more. And you can just dab it on. It gets that effect. Again, dark to light. This is starting to look like modern art. In potential rust layers. And it doesn't have to be rust. As I say at the bottom there, you can be doing a mud. Larry and I were talking the other night about some of the old locomotives, and the reason they called the K27s and K36s and so on were mud hens is because with all the outside counterweights on the drivers, they slung mud all over the place. So if you really want to get into some serious weathering, you can dab on little bits of mud. So before you start doing your chipping, just take a real dilute mixture, like 90% thinner, 10% paint, of the average color. This just ties it all together, makes everything a little softer than jagged edges. What the hell the overspray? Right. Once you're satisfied with your color, give it a good coating of a lacquer. I'd use mainly lacquer-based paints other than the base paints for oversprays, because you're going to start taking some water to this soon. And if you have water-based flat finish on it, you could ask for trouble. So now we're ready to start the chipping technique. Like I said, I'm going to mention it again. Practice, practice, practice. Go to the blue bin. Go to your junk pile. This is a friend of mine's sense of humor. How do you get to Carnegie Hall while you practice? And I mentioned the scientific method, but it helped. Like I was determined to get this technique down. So I got a notepad and I started noting, with how I mixed the paints, how I thinned them, how much I put on, how long I waited. And if you go back to that MIG tutorial that I showed you, or that article, that ended up being the best time frame, thicknesses, sequences to use. I read all the books and all the articles, and that one worked the best. So I'm sure Clark and some of the rest of you perhaps too. I know Clark knows all about the hairspray technique because we've talked about it, but the biggest problem is that you're trying to use hairspray to do modeling work, and it'll certainly work. And it was certainly all there was until these manufacturers came out with their own solutions for chipping for this paint process. The accepted procedure was to go pick out whichever one you like. So, Vanity says you got to buy the one that says big sexy hair, and then you spray it into the cap, and then you pour that into your airbrush. A lot of room for error, a lot of inconsistencies. You really don't know, what the ratios are. So again, our friends in Spain came up with a much more accurate, I guess, solution, a better, more precise solution. And they'd have it. There's two manufacturers, and AK and MIG used to be partners, and then they had a falling out, and AK's wife went somewhere else. So they each have their own company, and they do exactly the same things. They just have a different label on them. As I mentioned here, they are more expensive, but it's a hobby. It's not going to break the bank. Personally, the heavy chipping is for if you want great big chunks of stuff to come off, or the worn effects is much more subtle, like some of the pictures I showed at the beginning, some of the models. I've had the best luck with that one for whatever reason. And what else we got here? Now, here's an embarrassing thing. I got this article and I can't remember where I got it. I took a picture out of a magazine or an article somewhere. It basically, I would go through this afterwards. You can look on it on YouTube. And it explains that the drying time of the chipping fluid is important, because if you let it dry too long and you try to soften it, it doesn't work. And if you don't let it dry long enough, as soon as you put some water to it, the whole top coat of paint comes off. And the other important point is the thickness of the last coat of paint. What you're going to do is you're going to penetrate that last coat of paint with the water, so it moistens the layer underneath and allows you to peel a little bit of the top coat off to get that chipping or that rust effect. I guess you start forgetting things when you get a little older. So I'll go through this step by step. So here's our little samples, and we've got the clear flat finish, and it's nice and dry. We pie a thin coat of that chipping fluid. And again, I refer back to that step by step. Let it dry for about 10 minutes. Basically, you just want it dry to the touch. You don't want it to get too dry because it won't work. So just past the tacky stage, just dry to the touch. Then you apply a top coat of paint. So this is the yellow top coat that I've put over the rust and the chipping fluid. And you can play a little bit with the thickness of the paint or the viscosity of the paint by thinning it on different samples till you get what you like. And let that sit for about 40 minutes, 35 or 40 minutes. Now, here's the trick. You want to be able to hit the stop button. So now you're simply going to take a brush. This is a number 6 brush because I don't like to have way too much stuff coming off. And just gently brush over the yellow top coat. As soon, if you look in the left-hand picture, you can see that it's starting to come off. Well, now you want to be very careful, very slow. If you keep going too much, you're going to peel it all off. So you can stop for a few seconds, then try it again. And then you can see that by varying the time, the amount of water, and the amount of time that you work the top coat, you can get different amounts of rust showing through, if you like, as on the left. So with a little bit of practice and a little bit of scrap, you can get some pretty nice effects. The streaks that are done on these are done with oil brushers, and I know Greg's been trying them out, and perhaps some others that I haven't talked to have too. And I know Clark was interested in getting some, but the hobby shop, of course, now is locked down, so we'd have to go back to mail order. That's how you get these little streaking effects. So the bottom left corner is an old crane in a friend of mine's backyard. And I mean, it's not 100%, but it's close to replicating that. So a little bit of a plug for another military modelers, MIG ammo stuff. These are oil brushers, and basically it is a much better approach to using oil paints for weathering models. Oil paints for years have been used in weathering any kind of models. The problem is that they take days to dry. This comes in a very handy little tube. You turn it upside down, it doesn't spill. You don't have tubes of oil to squeeze out. It's pre-thin. It comes to the optimum consistency, and it dries probably within half an hour. It can be worked in that period of time, and you can see on the left-hand side in the background, there's just some little tiny streaks. I just happen to like rust, but it could be mud, it can be lime, it can be something coming out of a steam dome, it can anything. And you just work it with mineral spirits. The beauty of it all being mineral spirits, that mineral spirits doesn't attack lacquer-based paints or water-based paint or dry, then you can play with it with the mineral spirits. There's a couple of articles called the oil dot technique, where, as you can see almost in the center stage there, you just put a dot, let it dry for a few minutes, and then you can drag it down with a little brush. I use tiny brushes. I don't even use the brush that come in the oil brushers. I use smaller brushes. And then you can just some mineral spirits, and you can let it dry for 5-10 minutes. And then with some mineral spirits, you can make those streaks. You can work them to whatever you want. Don't get carried away. If you put too much thinner on, you'll wipe them right off. Or if you screw it up, you can wipe it right off. Again, this was trying to think where this. Oh, I know what this was. The fishing tackle. I stole this out of my son's tackle box. It was a couple of lures that he hadn't used yet. So that's just one of those clear plastic boxes that fishing tackle came in. So just to sum up this little presentation, what we've done so far is we've created the rust effects by removing paint. You can also do it by adding paint. So this is simply going back to that little sponge technique I had showed before, and just work some little different colors of rust with a sponge. Then you can go back and get your little oil brush, just little dots here and there, pick a spot you like and drag it down. You can rust streak with the oil brushers. And a wise man once said, the note at the bottom here, the first time I tried this, I'd never done it before. So, so here's the finished project. This, I'll tell you the truth, this oil tank was why I wanted to figure out how to do the rusting technique, because that's the effect that I was trying to achieve on that oil tank. There. So that's about it for that technique. Again, it's a little tedious to start with, but the results are great. And I think if we go to Shop Talk, the biggest, one of the best tools that you can use is go find something rusty. And I think you can see that some of the things that I've tried to duplicate are actually real. Not that, I don't know how to do that one. But the little streaks that are done with the oil brushers and the different colors of rust coming through, yeah, that's a good one there. So that's it. Stop sharing. And look at that. I'm actually using a computer. Anyway, any questions or comments, or if you can hear me all right?
I think it was great, Al. Thank you so very much for doing this for us. It's really a great technique. I never saw that done before.
Hey, Al, it's Clark. When you were doing the taking off the applying the water and taking off the surface paint, did you ever go and blot it or just let it sort of do its thing?
No, because what happens, Clark, is that you've got that top layer. It's just sit.
Yeah. Yeah.
There.
Okay.
The waters, and that's why that whole piece is going to come right off. You just got to be patient to stop for a minute or move over a little bit. Trust me, the first couple of times you do it, you're going to end up throwing something against the wall. So,
well, Al, this is Greg. Thank you so much for explaining why so many times when I've used chipping fluid, it hasn't worked the way I expected. I've let it dry and make much too long. You know, I think I probably let it dry overnight sometimes.
no, I think well, not the unfortunate thing, the tricky thing is that you get three things going with you or against you that you have to sort of work around. You got time, as you said. You've got the amount of chipping fluid you put on, and you've got the amount of top coat. So you've got time, thickness of paint, and the amount of chipping fluid you put on. And I've read several different articles, and they're all different. And you know, like I said, there's a box of scrap here. So, but that I'll go back to that one article, that step by step article.
Al, you're breaking up awfully bad.
Pretty much works. What can I do? Well, maybe if I get there, now you can just listen to me. You don't have to look at me. Must be something in the air tonight because we've never had this problem before.
Yeah, I know. I
Yeah,
know.
there's a
Everybody's
lot of-
locked down in your neighborhood and they're all on internet tonight.
You know,
That's right.
that's probably what it is. Yeah, everybody's, I was asking Ed about explain bandwidth to me, and he talked about rivers and creeks. Well, I guess tonight everybody's out swimming in the river or something, messing up the bandwidth.
Well, Al, thanks so very much for doing this for us. We really do appreciate it, and look forward to seeing you soon again.
Okay, you're welcome.